Far out in the warm, turquoise waters of the endless ocean, there was an island. But it was an island like no other. It was very small, only big enough for a single ancient banyan tree, a patch of soft green grass, and a cozy little hut made of driftwood and palm leaves. This island was the home of a little girl named Luna, and her island was her very best friend, because Luna's island was alive. It was Kai, a world turtle, a creature so ancient and so immense that his great, domed shell had become a living piece of land. Luna had lived on Kai's back for as long as she could remember. She knew the landscape of his shell better than her own 2 feet. She knew the gentle curve of the grassy meadow where she played, and the sandy beaches that fringed his shell, where she would collect seashells. Every morning she would greet him, pressing her cheek against the warm, ancient stone of his shell, and she would feel a slow, deep, and gentle rumble from within, Kai's way of saying good morning. They were a family, the two of them, floating peacefully together in the warm, familiar currents of their home. One night, as Luna slept soundly in her little driftwood hut, a great and silent storm passed far to the south. The storm was too distant to bring wind or rain, but its powerful, deep currents were like invisible rivers in the ocean, and one of these strong, unseen currents caught hold of Kai as he slept his slow, deep sleep. Gently, but with an unstoppable force, the current began to push him, turning him slowly away from the warm, familiar waters of his home and pulling him out into the vast, unknown ocean. When Luna woke the next morning, she knew immediately that something was wrong. The air, which was usually so warm and soft, now carried a sharp, cold chill. The water, which had always been a cheerful, sparkling turquoise, was now a deep, dark, and unfamiliar shade of indigo. And the sun, her friendly morning companion, seemed smaller and farther away in the pale sky. She ran to the edge of the island and looked out. The familiar, friendly islands of their home archipelago were gone. In every direction, there was nothing but an endless expanse of deep, dark, lonely water. A cold knot of fear tightened in her chest. She pressed her cheek against Kai's shell. His answering rumble was not the happy, contented sound she knew. It was a low, slow, and deeply sorrowful vibration. They were lost. Luna scrambled down the side of Kai's great shell, her bare feet finding the familiar handholds, and made her way to his great, ancient head, which was just resting above the surface of the cold water. She looked into his eye, an eye as large as her whole body, and she saw the reflection of her own fear and sadness. His great, golden amber eye, usually so full of a slow, peaceful wisdom, was now clouded with a deep and ancient sorrow. He let out another low, rumbling groan, a sound that vibrated through the water and seemed to speak of a deep and terrible loneliness. He had been born in the warm currents, and he had lived there for 1,000 years. His old, slow heart was not made for this cold, empty water. He was too old and too tired to fight the powerful current that had brought them here, and he did not know the way home. He was a great, living island of despair, adrift in a sea of hopelessness. Luna's heart ached for him. She reached out and placed her small hand on his giant, wrinkled, sea-stone cheek. "It's okay, Kai," she whispered, though her own voice trembled. "Don't be sad, I'm here. We're together, and I will find the way to get us home. I promise." Luna knew that making a promise was one thing, but keeping it was another. How could one small girl navigate the endless, empty ocean? She felt a wave of helplessness wash over her. She sat down on the grassy meadow on Kai's back and tried to think. As she did, She remembered a story her own grandmother had told her long ago, a story she had thought was just a fairy tale. Her grandmother had said that the great world turtles were the universe's first map makers. She had said that as they swam through the deep, silent ocean for thousands of years, they would watch the stars in the sky, and the stars would teach them the secret pathways of the water. And, the story went, the turtles would remember these pathways by etching the star patterns onto their very own shells, creating a map that could never be lost. A jolt of excitement shot through Luna. A map, could it be true? She had spent her whole life playing on Kai's shell, but she had never thought to look at the patterns with a mapmaker's eyes. She had always thought they were just pretty, ancient. Cracks and lines, a part of his old age. But what if they were more? What if the way home was written right here, beneath her very feet? Luna spent the rest of the day in a state of hopeful, nervous anticipation. She tried to trace the faint, intricate lines on Kai's shell with her fingers, but in the pale, cold daylight, they were just shallow grooves in the ancient landscape. She could not make out any clear shapes or patterns. If the story was true, the map would only reveal itself in the dark, when its own stars could shine. The afternoon seemed to last forever. She watched the cold sun make its slow journey across the sky, her heart thumping with every passing hour. To pass the time, she gathered some of the sweet, purple berries that grew near the banyan tree and brought them to Kai, feeding them to him gently, a small offering of comfort. She sang him a soft, quiet song, a song about the warmth of their home and the taste of the sweet turquoise water. She did everything she could to soothe his great sad heart and to keep her own hopes up. Finally, the sky began to darken. The pale blue faded to a deep indigo, and one by one, the first true stars of the night began to appear, sharp and brilliant in the cold, clear air. Luna held her breath, her eyes fixed on the shell beneath her feet, waiting and watching for the magic to begin. As the last of the sun's light disappeared from the world, it happened. A soft, silvery white light began to glow from the faint lines on Kai's shell. It started as a barely there glimmer, and then grew stronger and brighter until the entire surface of the great domed shell was covered in a breathtakingly beautiful network of glowing, interconnected lines and points. It was a perfect, luminous map of the entire night sky, mirrored on the turtle's back. The stories were true. These were the charts. Luna gasped in awe, her heart filled with a wonder so great it almost hurt. She could clearly see the constellations. She knew the Great Bear, the Hunter, the Swan, all perfectly rendered in the glowing lines. But there were other lines too, faint, silvery blue lines that swirled between the star patterns. These were not stars. These were the secret pathways of the ocean, the great, warm and cold currents that flowed like invisible rivers through the sea. The map was real. The way home was here. But the map was vast and confusing. She knew she could not just pick a path and hope. She needed to understand how to read it. She needed the mountain to speak. Luna stared at the beautiful, glowing map, a new problem dawning on her. The map showed 100 different paths, 100 different swirling blue currents. How could she know which one was the warm, safe current that led home? She felt a gentle rumble from Kai beneath her feet, and she looked down at the glowing lines. She remembered another part of her grandmother's story. The star charts were not just a map to be read with the eyes. They were a song to be sung with the heart. The story told of an ancient wayfinding song, a special melody that, when sung over the charts, would make the correct path glow brighter than all the others. but the song had been forgotten for generations. Luna had never heard it. How could she sing a song she didn't know? She sat down in the middle of the glowing constellations, her hope beginning to fade once more. She was so close, yet the final piece of the puzzle was missing. She looked out at the dark, lonely water, and then at the kind, sad, and ancient face of her friend Kai, who was trusting her completely. She knew she could not give up. If the song was forgotten, then she would have to find a way to remember it. Luna closed her eyes. If the song came from the heart, then she would have to listen to her own heart. She thought of home. She thought of the warm, turquoise water, the taste of sweet mangoes from the other islands, and the sound of the laughing gulls. She tried to turn these feelings into a melody. She began to sing, her voice small and hesitant in the vast, quiet night. It was a simple, hopeful tune, a song of longing for home. As she sang, she watched the glowing lines of the map, hoping to see one of them brighten. But nothing happened. All the swirling blue currents continued to glow with the same faint, silvery light. Her song was not the right one. She tried again, this time singing a more powerful, adventurous song, a song about bravery and a long journey. Still, the map remained unchanged. A wave of despair washed over her. The story was just a story. There was no magic song. There was no way home. Her voice faltered, and a single, hot tear of frustration and sadness rolled down her cheek and splashed onto the glowing shell at her feet. She had made a promise to Kai, and she was failing him. As her tear splashed onto the shell, a strange and beautiful thing happened. The point where the tear landed, a spot on a swirling blue current line, flared with a bright, warm, golden light. Surprised, Luna looked up, and then she understood. The song was not about a place. It was not about home, or adventure, or bravery. The song was about her friendship with Kai. It was about her love for this great, gentle living island who was her dearest friend. She had been trying to sing a song that the map wanted to hear, but she needed to sing a song that Kai wanted to hear. She took a deep breath, and this time, when she sang, the song came not from her memory, but from her heart. She sang of the day she had first met Kai, of the feeling of his warm, steady shell beneath her feet. She sang of their quiet mornings together, of the stories she would tell him, and of the deep, gentle rumbles he would give in reply. Her song was not about getting home. It was about already being home, as long as they were together. It was a song of pure, unconditional love and friendship. As Luna's true song, the song of her love for Kai, filled the night air, the star chart came alive. A single, swirling, blue current line on the map began to glow with a brilliant, warm, golden light, just like the spot where her tear had landed. The light was so bright and so clear, it outshone all the other faint, silvery paths. It was a beautiful, golden road, winding its way across the constellations, pointing them in the right direction. This was the way home. As the path on his shell lit up, a deep, powerful, and happy rumble came from Kai, for the first time since they had been lost. He felt the pull of home, the memory of the warm current in his ancient heart. With a great, slow, and powerful effort, he began to move. He turned his great body in the water, aligning his path with the golden, glowing line on his back. His giant, ancient flippers began to paddle with a new strength, a new purpose. He was no longer just a lost and drifting island. He was a ship, and his brave little captain had just shown him the way. He was tired, but the song and the light gave him the strength he needed to begin the long journey home. And so their journey began. All through the long, dark night, Luna stood on Kai's back and sang the Wayfinding Song. She sang to keep the path on his shell glowing, and she sang to give his old, tired heart the strength to keep swimming. And Kai swam with a power he hadn't felt in centuries. He followed the golden path on his back, a map that was a part of him, guided by the loving voice of the little girl who was his family. They traveled through wonders that Luna had only ever dreamed of. They passed through a field of sleeping moon jellies, giant dome-shaped creatures that pulsed with a soft, internal blue light, who seemed to glow a little brighter as Luna's song washed over them. A pod of silvery dolphins, their bodies sleek and shimmering in the moonlight, appeared from the depths and swam with them for a while, leaping and clicking in a happy rhythm with her song. They were no longer lost and alone in a cold, empty sea. They were on a great and magical voyage, to friends on a journey home, guided by a map of stars and a song of love. Luna sang until her voice was hoarse and the first pale light of dawn began to soften the eastern sky. As the sun rose, the magical glow of the star charts on Kai's back began to fade, their work for the night now done. Kai slowed his swimming, his great body tired from the long journey. Luna too was exhausted, and she curled up in the soft grass on his back and fell into a deep and dreamless sleep. When she awoke, the sun was high in the sky, and the air was different. The sharp, cold chill was gone, replaced by a soft, familiar warmth. The water was no longer a dark, forbidding indigo, but was beginning to lighten into a friendlier shade of blue. And then she saw it. Far away, on the horizon, was a tiny, familiar speck. It was the peak of the smoking volcano that stood on the largest island of her home. Her heart leaped with a joy so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. They were not home yet, but they were close. The map and the song had worked. She scrambled to Kai's head and pointed with a trembling finger. "Look, Kai, look." Kai lifted his ancient head and saw it too. A deep, happy, rumbling purr, the happiest sound in the world, vibrated through his entire being. The sight of home gave Kai a new burst of strength. He paddled the last few miles with a happy, steady rhythm. Soon, the other familiar islands of the archipelago came into view, their green shores and white sandy beaches a welcome sight. As they drew closer, the other sea creatures, their friends and neighbors, began to appear. A group of playful sea turtles, Kai's distant cousins, swam out to greet them, circling them with happy clicks and whistles. A great, gentle whale surfaced nearby and spouted a huge plume of water into the air, a magnificent, celebratory fountain. The sky filled with the familiar, cheerful cries of the gulls. Everyone was welcoming the great world turtle home. They had all felt his sorrowful absence, the missing piece of their warm, happy ocean. Luna waved to them all, her face beaming with a smile so wide it made her cheeks ache. She had kept her promise. She had faced the vast, empty ocean. She had deciphered a map of stars, and she had remembered a forgotten song. She had guided her oldest, dearest, and biggest friend safely back to the home he loved. That night, as the stars began to appear, Luna once again watched the magical star charts glow to life on Kai's shell. But this time, she did not see a confusing jumble of lines. She saw a beautiful, familiar map of her wonderful home, and she knew that her adventure had given her a new and very important job. She was no longer just a girl who lived on an island. She was a wayfinder. She would be the keeper of the ancient knowledge. She would study the star charts every night, learning the secret names of the stars and the hidden pathways of the currents. and she would practice the Wayfinding Song, the song of her heart, so that she would never forget it again. She knew that one day another storm might come, or another young turtle might get lost, and when that day came, she would be ready. She would sing her song, and she and Kai would be a beacon of hope, a living map and a guiding voice to help anyone who had lost their way in the vast, beautiful, and sometimes lonely ocean. It was a great responsibility, but it made her heart feel full of a quiet, steady purpose. Kai finally came to rest in his favorite spot, a warm, gentle current that flowed between two of the larger islands. He let out a great, long, happy sigh that rippled the water for miles around. His long journey was over. He was home. The water was warm, the sun was bright, and the world was exactly as it should be. He felt the familiar, happy energy of his home all around him, and his great, ancient heart was filled with a deep and profound peace. Luna too felt the contentment. She lay down in the soft, green grass on his back, the familiar warmth of his shell a comforting presence beneath her. She looked up at the blue sky and the fluffy, white clouds, and she knew she would never take them for granted again. She had seen the vast, cold, empty ocean, and it had made her appreciate the warmth and the life of her home even more. She felt a new and deeper connection to Kai now. They were not just a girl and her island. They were a captain and her ship, a singer and her song, a map reader and her map. They were a team, and together they could face any storm the ocean could ever send their way. And so, Luna and Kai sailed the warm waters together, a girl with a guiding song and a turtle with a map of the stars. Now, it is your turn to find your own path in your dreams. Close your eyes, listen to the quiet song in your heart, and sleep. Well, if you enjoyed our fable tonight, we hope you'll join us again. Please like and subscribe to Bedtimes Fable to help us share more gentle stories with the world. Sweet dreams.